Anybody there?
You have to start talking.
Good morning. Same old, same old. Again, we point to the one essence that's appearing, patterning, shaping, forming, and expressing as everything. And a lot of people call that God. But the trouble is, they read and hear that God is one God, but they take on the idea it's a personal God. And all things are the creation of this God, so they don't realise that they themselves are that one essence also. So one essence, patterning, shape, forming, and expressing as everything. And it points out there are no separate entities at all, there's no persons, nothing separate or apart than that. And that's the Mahavakya, the great mantra, I am that. And innately, don't you realise that? Because when you say that's the chair, that's the flower, that's the tree, that's me, that's you, that everything is that which we've discriminated with the word, with the thought, with the idea. And the thought, idea, is all images. All these patterns, shapes and forms are images vibrating into the patterns, shapes and forms. But it's the one essence, and you are that essence. So we say start from the fact that you're already that, and realise that any search that's going on is going to take you away from that, because you think you're going to become something or realise something or see something. But the seeing, hearing and realising is going on right in this moment. And this moment is just another label we put on the so-called time. It's all happening in this immediacy. Right here, right now, that's all there is. So we've taken ourselves to believe we are this individual, this person, this separate entity, and that look at the word indivisible. It means it's undivided. If it's indivisible, who are you going to divide it up between, or with what? So I am the individual. Yes, you are, but not the personal individual. You are the totality. It's all undivided. It's all indivisible. We see what's going on around us, and it can be from the words we've learnt and the ideas and descriptions we've got, it can seem very horrible, very terrible. But our narrow viewpoint from the idea of this persona, this person, makes it seemingly so. But take it as the absolute. Now, what is not included in the absolute? If it's absolute, every appearance, every pattern, every shape, every form is that, appearing as different. And they call it a phenomenal manifestation. That's all a manifestation. And the dictionary definition of phenomena, that word phenomena, is that which appears to be. Pointing out again that the pattern, shapes and forms haven't changed their true nature. They're only appearing to be separate and apart and something less than the totality. It's all, I tell you in the Buddhist texts, they call it the great perfection, just the same. That word perfection is just the same as the absolute. It means the totality. And they give it to you in one sentence there. The great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Put it all on this awareness. And awareness is existence before the consciousness comes onto it. And when the consciousness is on it even, it's still that awareness. It's all appearing on or in or as that awareness. No separation whatsoever. But in the dividing of it, we've taken ourselves from being the absolute into poor, miserable, unhappy, or depressed human beings. And we often say that when things are going wrong. Well, after all, I'm only human. Making out, of course, if I'm only human, so-called things are going to happen. Because you're taking yourself away from the completeness, the wholeness, the holiness, if you like to put it that way. Everybody's got an idea of some big mystical thing. You know, this enlightenment, this realisation of becoming one with God. It's some mystical, but it's not. It's a very, very, very ordinary awareness, or knowing, or seeing. Nothing simpler than that. In the recognising of it, and realising there's no static point to any of it, this persona, where does it begin? You can't say it begins, you can't say it ends. It's not static, it's transient, it's constantly an ever-changing, ever-fresh, ever-present awareness. So, when investigated along these lines, you'll see that nothing else, never can be anything else. And you've always and never been that. We've learnt words for our parents, our schools and everybody around us, and separated ourselves with the word. What's a word? A mental construct. A mental construct. What's a mental construct? A vibration. Vibrating and stirring, moving the stillness, seemingly moving the stillness. And it vibrates into patterns, shapes and forms. It's sound. Vibration is sound, it's movement, it's an activity. I use the term intelligence energy rather than use the term God, because God's all right if you understand it, but when you take it to be something greater than you, or a higher, or something that we can't come near or ever get to know, we try to become one with it, but the very trying takes us away. Because what's the trying mean? That means the so-called persona, the so-called person, thinks it has some self-nature, some self-power, some independent power of its own. And they get the idea of free will, my free will. But the ancient call is hero, from the Hebrews, Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God. There is nothing other. And if there is no thing or nothing other, that includes, it means it's you and everything else is that God. The Muslims say there is no God but God. That's all there is. Allah is his name. Allah is the label you put on him and put him up. Allah is something separate and apart, but still the one God. Christians and others say it's omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience, total presence, total power, total intelligence. So you are that totality. Because aren't you aware or knowing right now? Aren't you existing right now? Aren't you conscious right now? And aren't you happy to be right now? So you are that livingness, that power already. But look at the limitations and boundaries we put on it. What are the limitations, boundaries we've put on it? Words. In the beginning was the Word. That's when it all began, when you heard Word. Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden. They were in paradise. But someone came along and somehow or other they picked up words. They ate of the tree of knowledge, of good and evil. In other words, they learnt words. The words knowing that the words are. And not just good and evil were the words, but that's when the mind came in, because pointing out that the way the mind divides is always in duality. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, as Shakespeare tells you. Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And there, see how your mind functions. Good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, we've learnt words. The words being a vibration, they must vibrate. And if you've got two poles, they're vibrating at two boundaries, they're vibrating in that limited range. Good and bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad. And then we take the boundaries we put on, the words, to be real. But have a look and recognise there's no word that is real. Every word, every pattern, shape and form is a vibration. And it's seemingly, in the seeming vibration, it ends in the word, the label we put on it. This is good. And that's as far as it goes. And when it vibrates back the other way, this is bad. And that's as far as it goes. So we locked ourselves in a cage of concepts. We put the boundaries of ourselves. We're in this limited cage. Move out of the cage. Let the thoughts be free, as they say. Let them express. And if they're not free, expand them. Expand them until they take, instead of just taking a certain range in and leaving it, expand that range and take everything in. Everything in. And leave it as nothing. There's no boundaries to encage any of it. So you're free, become free of the belief you're encased in this conceptual image. And the Sakadata tells you, nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. What's your imagination? Well, it's the cage of concepts you build around yourself. And that's all our trouble is. And if he says that nothing can trouble you excepting that, your own imagination, what would you do to get out of that imagination? You'd drop the boundaries, wouldn't you? And let it expand. Let the thoughts expand. Let it contract till it contracts into the no thingness, or let it expand until it takes in everything and becomes the no thing again. So you are already that. And I am that. That sound, Om, is the primary sound. I am, when they translate it. I am. But you're not satisfied. We're not satisfied with I am. We've got to put something onto it. I am Bob, the Australian, the good fella, or the not so good. The world's against me, or I'm good. I'm having a bad trot. Everybody's attacking me. To put all these concepts in, or words. Without the concept, what am I? Now, Nisargadatta, when he was looking at this, he said, I stayed with that I amness. And in 3 years, recognising in every opportunity I could, the I amness, he says, I became free. Now, what's the freedom? Freedom from that. When he was talking about the I amness, people say, well, I'll do what Nisargadatta, I'll start saying I am, I'll stay with the I amness. Use it as a mantra. You do that, you can do it for 1 million years, and it won't do you any good. But what's that I am represent? It represents a sense of presence, the knowing that you are. That I am that's vibrating through the universe or the manifestation has no beginning or no end. That's a subtle sound, subtle vibration. And it continues to vibrate. And you know that you go out into the hills or the mountains somewhere and you speak a word and you hear it go out, it hits the rocks or something and vibrates, echoes back to you. An echo will bounce around there for a long time. It's getting subtler and subtler as it goes on. Or you've got a gong or a bell or something like that and you ring it. That sound vibrates and becomes subtler and subtler. But we think it ceases, but it's probably going on. Yeah, that's the ointment you put on, did you? Subtler and subtler, and goes on forever. And there's lots of texts out there, different religions, different traditions, that point toward it. And we localise ourselves in one and forget the others. And then we start arguing about it. Oh, my idea is better than yours. Just like you've got a couple of football teams. My football team is better than your football team. And we start fighting and arguing and bearing it forward. All these different religions fight and argue with themselves, not realising that each and every one of them, they can recognise the same essence if they look at it closely enough. So we're stressing the fact that it is one essence appearing and expressing as everything. And that one essence is the word, which is sound, which is vibration, which is a matter. Vibration is energy, the activity of knowing. Energy of vibration is an activity, and it vibrates intelligently. Because look out there and see the way nature is forming. Galaxies are forming, planets, stars, volcanoes, seasons, moon, stars, all the rest of it, trees, flowers, everything forming. Doesn't that imply these human forms? Doesn't it imply these forms, pattern, shapes and forms, though the pattern, shapes and forms are suffused with an innate intelligence, innately knowing. It knows, everything knows that it is. No, just purely knowing that it is without using the word it is, or using the words knowing. Because they're just concepts also trying to describe it. And we use words to try and recognise it. But the knowing is there. And that's such in an end, a being, knowing and loving to be. Or existence, consciousness, bliss. Or awareness of being is bliss. Or have an affectionate awareness of being. They're all different ways of describing the one thing. But it's all that. So the words vibrate into patterns, shapes and forms, play around for a while and disappear. And where did the words come about? Realise when you look at it that the word's not the thing. Take the word water. Can you drink it? You can't drink the word. But it describes to you what water is, what water is. Word fire. Can you cook with the word? Can you heat yourself with the word? So all these words you see, they've got this meaning in. Take this word I or me. What does that represent? Does it represent the person, the individual, or does it represent that sense of being, that knowing of being, or that sense of presence? Because knowing that I am, the I amness, is right in this immediacy. The sense of being alive, of being aware. You don't, not a moment or a second away or anything, it's immediate. It's spontaneous. Spontaneous activity of that intelligence energy. And the way it's expressing through the body. And if it didn't have a pattern to express through, where could it express? The shape and form of the body with all the organs, the nerves, the sinews, and the brain, and all the rest of them, enables that intelligence to form, bring these words into form, shape and form. And the shape and form, the pattern, are Maya. They're illusion. They only appear to be so. And that's all this manifestation, a phenomenal manifestation. And what's the definition of phenomena? Phenomena, the dictionary definition, is that which appears to be. So it's all appearance, but we've never been told to look at it when we were first born. We're told to acquire, amass, accumulate, add to this I-ness, this me-ness, to make it whole, to make it complete, to make it real, because we've taken on the idea it's separate. So if we acquire, amass, accumulate, better education, more wealth, good relationship, a good job, all the rest of it, we acquire all these things, it'll make us complete or whole. Not realising we're all complete already. We've always been the whole, nothing separate, always been complete. Nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away from the absolute. So we're starting from behind the eight ball and we think we've got an entity, a human being, a person, that we've got to fix up first before we can find ourselves or understand ourselves or know ourselves. But realise that body, mind you call you, is the pattern which it's expressing, and use it as that. Instead of letting it use you, letting you use, or not recognise the essence, there's no you as such, instead of recognising the essence, it's expressing for what it is. What is means it's unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Everything appears as is right now. Unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. But what happens if you recognise that all the appearance can be broken down back to that innate intelligence energy, the innate essence, the one reality, or the beingness, or the awareness, whatever labels you like to put on it, being the one. Yeah, that's the... So, you must only and ever be that one. Non-duality, they describe as one without a second. Now, one is the beginning of all the counting, isn't it? So without one, there can't be two. So one without a second implies that there's not two. We'll see that as so. That means one without the other, not the second as a second in time, but without the other, not two. Where's the count going to go from then? You realise it's only the one that's patterning, shaping and forming as the tree, as the flower, as the sky, as the space. as the volcanoes, as the planets, as everything else, as the so-called seemingly God, as the holiness, as the sinfulness, as everything. And you already are that. That is what we said before we put the label on. It's that. You know that innately because they say that's the chair, that's the carpet, that's the flower, that's the tree. It's all that which we put the labels or the words on. If you didn't have any labels, what would you put on it? Look around the room right now without putting the label on anything in the room. And you realise you're seeing what everything is without labelling it. And you know what it is. And you'd be able to describe it if you ask what it is, or you'll say that's a picture on the wall, or that's the wall. But without saying that, you know what it is. You needn't call it the picture on the wall, but you know it's not the wall itself. And then you might understand when they say, seeing no thing, yet it is seen. You're seeing all these things without the label, and you realise that they are no thing. They are just the pure seeing, which as soon as you put the divider to them, they become things. So everything in this manifestation is things. You are a thing. You call a human being, I am a thing. You call a body, mind, entity, or a person, or a human being. Now, can something come from no thing? If no thing is empty, and nothing at all, no pattern shape, can something come from it? It can't. So you realise, leave everything as it is as no thing, seeing it as no thing, you're knowing what it is. Like this cat here, there's a cat in the room here. It hasn't got labels for everything, but it knows what it is. It's taste, it's smell, sense of smell, it's seeing, it's drilling and movement. It's not discriminating any of it with the words. Yet it knows what everything is. There's a knowing. It knows what food is, it knows what it's not. It knows where to go to get out of the house. So that's the innate intelligence. That you are that. You are that energy. You are that awareness. Awareness of being. Being is not becoming. See where we get taken up with the words? And the self. Myself. We think as this persona, this mask, this conceptual image, we call it myself. See what we've done? We've encaged ourselves into the me and the my, the conceptual image. We put ourselves in this boundary, this limited factor, me and my. You know. But there's no personal self. And they tell you that in all the scriptures. There is one self. That God, if you like to call it that again, is the Atman, or the self. And again, the Lord thy God is one God. There's not two. So there's only one self. There's not myself. But we take it to be myself, and we've got to realise it, make ourselves whole and complete. And when we start from that idea there is a me or a myself, it won't happen, and it can't happen. We put the boundaries and stopping it from happening. But if they're open and cognise it a little bit, it'll take you where you've got to go, in spite of yourself, in spite of how strong these beliefs might seemingly be. It turned me around and took me the other way completely, till the realisation there wasn't everything there. And it took me to the so-called patterns that could help me. The Sagadata, Muktananda and others, and a lot of the texts and biblical statements and things like that. Though I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Hebrew, a Jew or a Muslim or a Christian or any of these sects at all or religions at all. But I see the truth in each and every one of them, and I can take parts or concepts and bits from each one that resonate with me and utilise it. I don't have to say that's no good. And at one stage I did that and believed that, all that crap, but it take me beyond that even. So I have no, what do you call it?
Attachment?
Yeah, no static point that I can say, this is what I am. But I can't deny the sense of presence, the knowing, and it comes as a thought I am, the knowing that I am. But I know that thought is just a description, and I know the description is not the described. What I'm describing now and trying to describe is not its description, but it might give you a hint. It might give you a glimpse of something a bit further to look at, where you might be stuck in some concept or something. It might not either. It doesn't really matter. If you don't get it here, you might get it somewhere else if you're astute enough. So, it takes you beyond the word. And beyond the word is beyond the mind. And that's what they tell you. They tell you it's beyond the mind. It is prior to mind. Saying beyond the mind means it's prior to mind. It is there before the mind appears, and the mind must appear in it or on it, or whatever you like to call it. You see? And we've got this handicap, my mind, my body, myself. Who is this me or my referring to? That's alluding to the persona, the mask, the conceptual energy. And if you realise what they're saying, it's one self, patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything. Where would you start? Wouldn't you grasp if there's only one self? I start from that fact and see that, recognise it, see if it's so or not. Because we've got all these beliefs about this and that we've picked up in the language, and the belief's never the actual when you question it. With so many things you believed in, you've recognised the falseness of them and moved on. Move on from that belief that you are the persona. Move on from that thing that you are this body, mind. Go to the point where are you prior to the thought. Let it go. Let the thought go. Free it. Let it be free. Let it move on. And it will move on. Every thought you've ever had is changing. You might get the seemingly what appear to be the same thoughts come back and back again. But each time they come back and they had disappeared for a while, it's fresh and new. See, everything is fresh and new. Nothing static about it. Got a few questions?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Hello everyone, that's a comment from Rohan. Love it, Bob. If me is looked at and seen to be insubstantial, then mine disappears with it.
Exactly.
Rather than beating oneself up for being greedy or possessive, see that the possessor is only appears to be there, and pull it out with the root, out by the root.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. And there was another question I've seen, and a lot of love messages, welcome messages. You will see through them after the meeting. But there was another question from Tanya. I don't know if I can get back to it. But it was a question about someone who goes to the gym and try to build his muscles or her muscles. Does that mean they are identified with the body? That was the question. If wanting to be fit and healthy and muscly, whatever, does it mean that the narrative will be about identification or no?
Well, what do you do if you're in a car? Do you put rubbishy fuel in it? Meant to go from A to B? No. You put good fuel. You wash it and look after it. Same with pattern through which this intelligence is expressing it through. And if you know very well, if that body-mind wasn't there, who could say what? As far as you are concerned, they believed in you.
Yes.
That's you. That pattern, it seems, is the unique expression of that intelligence energy. It expresses through all the different pattern shapes and forms, uniquely. So now, if you look after this body first, it's because that body's physical, mental, and spiritual. They divide up into three things. It's like thought, feeling, and emotion are one and the same thing: steam, water, and ice. Well, we think we've got the body now. Physical. To keep it physical, needs exercise, needs movement, as well as food, water, and all the other things, to replace the cells, keep it going. So the body is very useful, and while ever you're living in it, while ever the life essence is in it, you're going to know that. And you're open to what's going on. You'll do what's necessary to respond to it, comes up and does. But if you try to fix the me, you're not going to get anywhere, because you've got nothing there solid or substantial to start with. The me is already a fiction. It doesn't exist, the ego. When the sense of presence comes on you, the capacity of reasoning develops when you learn words. And that capacity is a very useful capacity, and that's what I say, words can be very useful. But they're also self-destructive when we add on it the persona or the mask on. And that's the limiting factor, the boundaries. Take the boundaries off, and that body, you'll be utilising that body. It'll resonate with things, it'll tell you, and it'll come up through it to move on to the next thing, or what you resonate with.
Yes, so I'll just add to it, because that's the thing that I learned from you and really appreciate. Is the fact that someone goes to the gym, it doesn't signify really anything, because I know from Bob's biography, he's been going to the gym in his 70s, getting up at 4 in the morning and going to the gym because he wanted the body fit and strong. But the question, is there identification there or not, is the question of narrative. It is, if you go to the gym because you find yourself going to the gym, just like an orangutan finds itself swinging from branch to branch in the forest because it is linked to its survival, to be fit and strong. And there is no narrative that I want to do it because I want to be attractive, because this is me and my body and I am this body. Then there is no reason to think that whatever the body is moved to do has anything to do with the identification, which only happens in the narrative. So you find yourself going to the gym, doing yoga, Pilates, or whatever, that's what you find yourself to do. If the narrative accompanies it, that I am this body and that's why I am doing it, then look at the narrative. The body's action is of secondary importance. But the narrative that can keep you in the story of you are doing it because you are it, that is where the suffering comes. Because when the body is fit and healthy and young and vibrant, of course that goes with pleasure, that identification might give you some sort of a reward. But it's not going to stay the same. We know everything is transient, so it is going to change. Even the after-party hangover, that's a change already. But with aging, the change is even more profound. So to break up the identification that happens in narrative and let body look after itself, let body be naturally drawn to stay fit and stay healthy, that's probably the healthier way of looking at it. Jumping into the conclusion that someone who is doing a dancing course is vain, or someone who is going to gym is identified. It may happen in certain cases, and as we know the profile of society, it probably happens in most of the cases that narrative will still make a story that I am the body, but it doesn't have to be this way. And Bob was 20 years clean of the idea of being anything at all, and still going to the gym religiously. Until today, we do exercise, because otherwise he wouldn't be walking by now.
But again, the life energy won't allow you to keep building up the body, and it starts to break it down after a while.
Yeah.
And you can't limit it. Look at all the great bodybuilders, champion bodybuilders. Some of them, look at as they're aging today, you see, where's all the muscles now? You know, it can't help the aging process. It breaks it down. That's the natural pattern of life.
Mm.
But while you're there, it'll keep it going a lot longer than what you would if you were using it, putting rubbish into it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a comment from Brett. Morning, Bob and Kat. Bob, as you were talking, the thought, everything, everywhere, at all time, whispers, I am, arose. Nice comment.
Who was it?
Brett.
Oh, yeah.
And now you have another one from Amarnath. Why we are becoming even if we don't want, how we are fooled by mind. This is a quote from Pranam's Gurudev. And Jane says, going to the gym is like taking the car for a tune-up or service. And now Catherine says, hi my lovelies, James Seltzer, his daughter Jolie and me, all with you now. Namaste. And another one from Armand. Bob, may I know, are you without thoughts? Thanks.
Bob never had any thought ever. Thoughts appear through this body though. And that's the way it is. You know, the mind's still going. I haven't got dementia possibly as yet. But there can be long periods when there are no thoughts here. They're dropping off. And there are other periods when there are lots of thoughts. But thoughts come and thoughts go. Thought can be very necessary.
Yeah.
And without thought it can be very peaceful. Doesn't matter. Nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's the thinking. Thinking happens. When I think, and seemingly form a subject, and I think this and simply form an object through thinking, that's when it becomes problematical. There's nothing wrong with thinking.
And I've heard some of our friends who are coming to the meetings were really getting excited about one of non-duality speakers, speaking fluently, expressing thoughts all the time, and still claiming that he has no thoughts. And building up a lot of confusion in people and a lot of false hopes that are ridiculous because are not necessary. What he meant, and he failed to express it properly, is self-referential thoughts. That's a difference. I mean, of course, he can define the thought, or anyone can define the thought the way they please. But what is really signifying the clarity of the identification, or lack of the identification, is that the self-referential thoughts either stop appearing completely, or if they appear, they hold no power, so they don't really have that power to identify with the story. So even if there would be a thought arising, I'm cold, it doesn't mean that there is an entity grabbing into the body and believing that there is me, I, the body, I am it, and I am cold. No, it is the thought that creates the action of taking a coat or dressing up. But very often that action is created or is induced by the body without that thought. So the thoughts are coming, like people can still do equations, they can plan, they can answer questions. But the self-referential thoughts, this is what should be really clarified. The thought, the self-obsession, going about the day and thinking, oh, what are they thinking about me? Oh, I should have told them this, I should have answered that. That sort of self-obsession nonsense, that stuff drops away. And that makes a big difference. Because other thoughts, you do want to have that computer fully tuned and ready to use, because it's handy.
Yeah, as they say, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Like the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. Another place that says, hold no opinions for or against anything. It doesn't mean to say opinions won't arise, but don't hang on to them. Don't cling to any thoughts. And in the finish it says, words. The way is beyond language. Remember that. For in it there's no yesterday, no tomorrow, and no today. pointing out again that all these thoughts are concepts, not just only yesterday, tomorrow, today. All the other thoughts, they're only conceptual images. They can be used, but when they use you or trouble you, it's a problem. And when seeing through the thoughts, that's the no mind, or the Buddha mind, or the unborn mind, yeah, without a thought. But thoughts, the knowing is there, pure knowing, which you can't even say you're knowing then.
Yeah.
Just is. Or
So,
just ising, if you like.
Tanya says, thank you, Bob and Kat, so much. I go to the gym for enjoyment now, especially as I see I am not is not located in the body. And then Mona says, what does Bob think on life experience and suffering on the path that happens for us?
Naturally, it vibrates in the pairs of opposites. There's quite a bit of suffering here at times. But it comes and it goes.
Is that suffering, I mean mental suffering, or is it just pain?
Oh, pain and yeah, stirring up. And you know, the mind affects the body, just the same as the body affects the mind. So the thoughts, feelings and emotions will come up. If they're not fixated on, just like out in nature, it's light, it's dark, it's winter, it's summer. Still the change is coming about, but is the reality or the essence touched or contaminated by any of it?
Yeah, I think it might meant the idea, because she says the path that happens for us. I know there is a saying in spirituality that things don't happen to us but for us. So we are not the victims of whatever is happening, but they are happening somehow for us to grow, to get to know ourselves, to experience ourselves.
No, a better term would be as us.
Yes.
Not for us. It implies there's a separate entity there.
Yeah.
Happening as us.
Yeah, if you expand your identity to be everything that affects you as much as the body that it is affected, then it is just a dance.
If we say for us, well, we think, oh, I'm going to get some benefit out of this. He's favouring me.
Yeah, that's what often happens, and it happens effectively in many reframing techniques and even psychology. When someone feels that something happened that was harmful and it has negative stories, someone has negative story about being a victim and having a bad, how you say it? I'm a good bloke having a bad...
Trot.
Yes. So they can reframe the story and say, oh, look, this was good. This made you stronger. It made you wiser. This is all operating within the realm of stories. When there is an entity in the story, an entity has the positive story or negative story. It has the hero journey story. They are all absolutely beautiful, but they are even better if you recognize that they are just a story. They are narrative. Because life that runs that story, or all those stories, you can even write few different stories on the same topic with the same hero or heroine, and see them for what they are. They are just stories. None of it is absolute truth, because you are the truth. The life that is animating that story, that is what is truth behind it, and it can't be known because it is a mystery. It is what is an essence of everything. So it can't be. Every attempt to bring it down to the pen and paper and put it on the flat screen or even on the TV screen as a movie is limiting it, is somehow confining it. And it can be still mind-blowing, it can be inspiring, motivating, it can be beautiful, but it still somehow makes the multi-dimensional mystery of life flat, two-dimensional or three-dimensional. There's nothing wrong with using positive stories and interpreting whatever happens as, oh, this is for me, this is good because. But if you know that this is just a story, the freedom is in it, because you smile, you experience all the gratitude and everything that goes with it, but you're still free from the double bind, from the pairs of opposites, from the good and bad story.
His story. History.
History, yeah.
History.
That's right. Rohan says, you, quote unquote, can't help going to gym even if you wanted to. Haha. All the play of the life essence. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep.
Thinking about thinker, right. Amarnath, sorry. And Tanya says, yes, Rohan, I have noticed that. Amarnath says, like the digestion, heart beating, involuntarily thinking happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Thinking, seeing, tasting, touching, really. It's all a functioning of that intelligence energy.
Mm-hmm. Now, Megan says, the way is perfect, like vast space where nothing is lacking and nothing in excess.
Yeah.
Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things.
Yeah.
Live neither in entanglements of outer things nor in inner feelings of emptiness. That seems in Ming, I recognize.
Yeah. Take no static position point.
Yes. Charlie says, good to see you, dear Bob and Kat, much love. Yeah, thank you for all we've seen, and Bob will really read one by one all the messages of welcome and love, and they're beautiful. But we're gonna just focus on questions, so I'll skip them. Forgive me, please. Some paths are quite easy and some people have more challenges. Does it mean I have more to be cleaned when I go through more challenges? That is Mona. Thank you. Yes, stories, a way to experience ourselves. So, what you want to comment on that? That some people have more challenges, and does it mean I have more to be cleaned? I mean, this is probably the idea of purification of the mind, and
Yeah. No, it's just what comes up. Just what comes up.
I remember one quote from the book that our friend put together. This is like 1,000 years old Zen teachings called 9 Pieces of Zen. One of the quotes in the book says, to purify the mind is to pollute it. Because how can you ever purify the empty thing? Purification, cleaning, this is all fascinating journey of an individual. It has nothing whatsoever to do with the consciousness looking through your eyes right now, listening through the ears right now. Now it is already seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, but somehow, somewhat, the filter of interpretation and relating it to the entity happens. But that consciousness is already bright and clear. When that filter drops away, it is clear and obvious. It already is. So is the clearing of the filter necessary, purifying of the filter necessary? That's the question of who would be doing it.
Yeah.
Because if there is no entity already, that is just emptiness operating through different software in the brain. The personality is a software. So who would be doing the cleansing, cleaning, purifying, rewriting the stories to positive or to different, or even wiping off the stories? It is always kind of, it brings up this is the way the mind tempts you back into the story. I will do everything I can. I will sit and purify and chant and do whatever it takes. I've been through it too.
Who are you comparing it against anyway? No comparison. If you're comparing against somebody, how do you know it's more than somebody else has?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it may seem like, some people are born in India and live in places which we've both seen that generations after generations sleep under the blue breast and find their food in the rubbish. Or places in Africa. I've seen incredible places when I was working there where people lived in the buildings that fall apart. Children play there. It does seem like somebody has it harder than the other. Or there are people with terminal diseases, people whose both parents died, people who struggled through many, many different challenges. Does it mean they are more enlightened because they suffered more? Or does it mean that they are closer because they're more pure? It doesn't mean anything at all. Because this is again the perspective of individual. As individual me comparing to this one, I'm better off, and comparing to that one, I'm worse. But as individual, I have the tendency to constantly go to the mind and elaborate and compare. But when I go back to the emptiness or to the life, now I am that essence. I am living through the child in Africa on the broken building left by British colonizers in Ghana, where everything falls apart. They only left the language and abused the system. And as emptiness, I'm all of it. As the life essence, I'm all of it. So I'm not one that have better life or worse life. I'm every single one, having bad, good, pleasant, painful, all the options included. So finding yourself, looking from the perspective of life, there's no need for comparison, because the variety is infinite. Whatever is thinkable is already experienceable. So there's no need to place yourself anywhere. Another one?
See, that's not being photographed on there.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah, not far. Yeah. Yeah. Amarnath says we are prior to the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brett says that barrier between me, you, they, us, slowly I unpick them. Unpick them.
Yeah.
And Rachel says, love having you both. Ah, thank you, Rachel and Jim. And could you speak about love? This is John David. Could you speak about love?
Could I? What?
Speak about love.
Oh. Well, what is love?
Yeah.
Love's just a name, another name for life, really, isn't it?
Mm.
We're love to be. It's what we call a sensation or an emotion, isn't it?
Mm.
It's loving to be. We all love to be. And you are that life. And there is only life. There's nobody who lives a life. And life lives on life. And that's the love of being. Just open up to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nisargadatta has a beautiful way to express the idea, what Bob just said, that love is life. Or he says love is everything. Love is what underlies every action and every motivation. It may be selfish, like Bob often says, have you seen a millionaire who had enough? So that's self-love, is selfish, is misguided. It comes from the standpoint that I am that self, so I want to kill and rape and get anything snatched from the others, destroy their lives, take the quality of their lives away because this is for me, or my right, or what I believe is honest and ethical. And there is also, but motivation is still love, even though it's completely twisted. Other way Nisargadatta says it, searching for wisdom is love for the truth. Searching for security is love for the safety, it's wanting the self-preservation. And he says love can be small and misguided, or it can expand and embrace the whole universe. But the love remains. Larry, a question. Bob, was I considering the sense of presence, of being myself, and how that is the same sense I remember from grade school? This seems simple and obvious, yet in sleep, that sense is not... that's a longer one. It's not there. Of course, the body dies. Is that sense of presence or the experience happening now not also an appearance to what I am? This seems like a dualist way of looking at it. Thanks.
What's that again?
What's that again? I was considering sense of presence, of being myself, and how that is the same sense I remember from grade school.
Mm-hmm.
This seems simple and obvious, yet in sleep that sense is not there. of course
Yet
the
in
body
sleep.
dies.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm?
Sleep gone.
Yes, of course the body dies. Is that sense of presence or the experiencing happening not also an appearance to what I am? Sense of presence is the appearance to what I am.
Yeah. Innately, that sense of presence when you're a little child, that's how, it's still the same sense of presence that is with you right now.
Mm.
Because you can go back and remember when you experiences you had when you were a little child, and you know that you,
Yeah, you go on.
yeah, and the knowing that you are is there right now. It's the same knowing that you are. Remember, that's all it is. It's got no, when you say the body dies, it doesn't die in sleep. You just don't remember, because when you wake up, you'll say, "I had a good deep sleep." How would you know whether your sleep was dry or interrupted or what it was? But just the mind goes, the mind rests. But when you're in deep sleep, you're still breathing, your heart's still beating, hair and fingernails are still growing, food's being digested. All these functions are still going on.
Yes, I think he meant the sense of presence in being like consciousness, being awake. Are you aware? Are you unaware? Is that one also appearance on the?
You're
On
always awareness there,
the
but you're aware of your unawareness because you say, "I don't remember." You were not aware, but you know that all the way through it. It's just the same all the way through from when you were a little child till now. Though you're not constantly remembering it all the time, you know it's the same sense of presence. As Walt Whitman says, far down, I see the first huge nothing. I know I was even there. He knows he was there. That is still the same knowing. And he says, I'm not contained between my hat and my boots.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that if there is anything which is called presence that can be conceptualized and grasped as a thing, that is definitely appearing and disappearing. Because what is the screen, the basic screen or the emptiness, it doesn't appear or disappear. So what you're saying is totally right. I mean, the way you explain sense of presence, this is something that even when there is a sleep, the awareness is still there, because there is awareness of non-awareness, of forgetfulness. But perhaps there is a possibility that his definition of presence is slightly different, and then it would be that it is something that appears when you wake up in the morning and disappears when you fall asleep. If there is anything that could possibly be conceptualized or defined as something that comes and goes, that's definitely an appearance. But again, ultimately the presence is pre-sensory. What we call presence doesn't have the taste or touch or texture or anything. So it can't be conceptualized, it can't be grasped, and it can't be even considered as something that comes and goes. Again, the question of definition. Then, yeah, unfortunately, most of these questions have to be answered from within.
Yeah.
Because you know what you mean by the word when you utter it.
As I say, it seemingly comes and goes, but can you find a static point anywhere? Can you go back to childhood? Can you say there's a static point you can pinpoint and say this is where it began? You can't. So you see, that's coming and going or appearing only. But it's always and ever been so.
Yeah.
Without the concepts going on. Pure, total awareness. Absolute.
Paul and Amelia saying hi and sending love. Paul Hederman and Amelia.
Ah, good.
Yeah. Rohan says, the universe was neither born nor maintained nor dissolved. This is the plain truth. The basic screen of pure being, awareness, stillness, devoid of all the moving shadow pictures of name and form of the universe is sole eternal existence. Right, Bhagita?
Right, Bhagita, yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Amarnath, but pure mind is self, told in scriptures as sattvic mind. Impurity is impressions or samskaras.
What?
Pure mind
Pure mind.
pure mind, yes, is self, told in scriptures as sattvic mind.
Plastic.
Sattvic.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Impurity is impressions or samskaras.
Yeah. Just impressions.
Yeah.
Patterns, shapes, forms.
And now, we ourselves as love, as universal love, there is no second one to be loved or lover. Yeah, one.
So that gets rid of this beloved, doesn't it?
Yeah, Tanya says, rape, murder and violence is that. Intelligence, energy also. Everything is that intelligence, energy. Absolutely everything that appears.
Yeah. What would you rape or murder somebody if you're getting some self-gratification out of it?
Yeah.
It's all for that's believed in self.
Mm.
Get rid of that personal self and see.
Yeah.
What would you want of another person's?
Yeah, yeah. Why would you want to harass anyone or snatch anything from anyone if you already have the sense of completeness? Why would you want to be violent towards anyone if there is nothing missing? Amarnath, all body minds are instantly created by observer, actually doesn't exist but appears to be existing like in dream.
Yeah. Realise this when you wake up, this is a waking dream. The only way you can tell the difference between that and a sleeping dream is when you wake up in the morning, this one seemingly continues from where it left off the night before.
Yeah.
The sleeping dream only lasts a short while. When you wake up, it soon disappears. What?
Nothing, waiting for questions. There's another beautiful message from John David. Love ya Bob, love ya Kat, love to my extended family in the meeting today. Thank you.
Yeah. Nothing comes to mind to say at the moment.
No.
But the saying will be there if there is any. Some good stuff coming through from the different ones.
Yeah. Oh, I remember something. Kavita was saying that was what Tanya was also hinting on the Zoom meeting. Mike asked us about the violence, whether working on violence or trying to stop the violence that happens in one's own body. I'm not quite sure. I hope she was with us to remind the question, because that was the end of the meeting. We were over time and we kind of hinted on it. You remember?
No. Violence.
Yes. Generally, the idea of violence.
Well, something's been stirred up, some thought, feeling or emotion is registered and believed in, and then the sensation of anger or that anger can develop into violence.
I should sit up a bit. Oh, that's better.
And,
Yeah, I remember he was, I think, it was around the idea of leaving things as they are.
Yeah.
If someone has a very, very strong pattern of violent reactions, what does it mean to leave it as they are? Leave it as it is. And what? Go on the street and murder someone? So we were actually hinting that leave it as it is. If there is a violence coming up, and there is already a worry about that violence coming up, that worry about wanting to do something about the violence, that also should be left as it is, and not suppressed by any means. So if there is there is an instinct to go and get the therapy or get sedatives or go or whatever, the psychiatrist looking at it, or anger management course, or whatever the hint is, whatever the world is expressing and bringing up into the table, is going to be left as it is, and see where the movement comes from it.
It comes up that somebody does something, or something happens, it stirs up, and the point might come up, or to act on it. The emotion comes up as violence, but leave it. And it's hard to do when it comes up spontaneously, but out of the old habit we've always reacted to it, so the natural response. But leaving it as it is and letting it die down, and after a while it won't even bother coming up. But you've got to keep seeing through it and catching it. So it means that alertness or attention or awareness, into the awareness, just seeing everything as it is, and you break the old habit.
Yeah. And also the old easy recipe that you taught me as well. Take the label off and see the bubbling life without calling it anything, without calling it volcano or violence or anger or whatever, and just be present with it.
Yeah. Look at it as fresh and new, as though you see it for the first time. Look, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. Oh yes, we got a couple of answers now. Sense of incompleteness does not exist at all. The best thing I can say that is I have no questions. Thank you to you both. Much love. And that was Michael.
Oh, yeah.
And Jessie says that we are beautiful. Thank you. And Larry says, Bob, so is presence literally pre-sense, prior to sensing, yet necessary for sensing? And is that what is being pointed to? The presence as pre-sense?
Pre-sense, yeah. Immediacy.
John is asking, Kat, are you planning on writing about your understanding and publishing a book? Your pointers have also been very clear and many others could benefit from them. I have no idea. We started writing things together about 3 years ago, but then the life kind of sidetracked it. Maybe it will get complete, maybe not. Right now we have to necessarily, not by our choice, focus on the different things. But who knows? Yeah. Rohan says, thank you. I saw a documentary the other day on chimps being brutal, killing other species of monkeys and even other chimps to expand territory. We see the same behavior in animals also, as we see seemingly as we seemingly exhibit. Yeah. Yeah, very good point. It's just the magnitude of the experience. It's like being territorial with the animals. Look how territorial humans are. We are pushing out all the other species over the edge of the flat earth if it was flat. Yeah, it's you're right. I've seen the documentary in which I have even seen a adult monkey raping a baby monkey. That was horrifying. It happens. And I don't know whether they develop a basics of the self-link network in the brain, or is it just part of a nature ritual, but it's extremely rare to be able to film things like this. It was 1 of a million of the films or more of those monkeys within humans. As far as as my own research says, when I spoke with men, because I spent most of my life working on the ships with men, asking them questions, the thoughts like this, even incentive thoughts, or they present. They are so present within that selfing structure. The acting out of them is through the socializing or sense of guilt or shame that has been introduced by religions, is kept down. But we are watching documentary right now about, yesterday we watched a little bit about the Inquisition. My gosh, we cannot compare human species and the cruelty to which the human species are
capable.
Yeah, to the animal kingdom. There is no way. We are really insane. I mean, if you look at the history, and this is happening today, if you watch the news, and it is the self-gratification. Perhaps if there was no self-gratification, certain level of violence, cruelty would still be associated with the, perhaps even defending the territory or defending the family or defending a physical body. But the magnitude is just unthinkably incomparable. But yeah, I'm glad you see it, because I always love to relate to the truth of nature. That it is happening out there as well. It does seem cruel, but there is no narrative of self-gratification happening there. When the quadriceps kills the brain of the ant and lives through it, there is no meanness towards the ant. There is no meanness in, even when lion kills the cubs, the young babies, because he wants the lioness to be available for him. There is no meanness in it. There is no narrative saying that of hatred or anything like that, as far as we know by observing nature, because that's just observation again.
Yeah. All things take place. But the universe just keeps rolling along without it, doesn't it?
Yeah, Tanya says, irritation with your daughter can still appear even if you are clear that there is no separate self. Irritation, you can experience irritation or reaction, absolutely. I mean, your body is conditioned to have bottoms. You may experience irritation with the premenstrual syndrome or with a heavy raining weather when you know this.
And these make me feel irritable all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Dogs experience, we would label it irritation. We don't have to label it anything. But when they pass each other too close, or when there is a big crowd or big traffic and there is too much of the energy mixing, that can cause reaction. The reaction is totally, part of the appearance. You don't want to be a zombie incapable of having emotional reactions. It's just that the narrative that comes with it, you see through it and you laugh.
Yeah, that's why it's natural response is just the natural activities of the body.
Yeah.
Reacting, you go into the mind and say, I don't want it to be this way, I'll change it. Or want more of it, or whatever.
That's right. Yes, and then Kavita, she is with us, and she does remind, she was asking about resistance. It was the question, because I remember Mike was asking about violence, and Kavita was asking about resistance. But I think resistance we actually did answer, or didn't we?
Yeah, well, I say all the time. Resistance is conflict.
Yes.
When you're opposing something or resisting it, you're in conflict with it. And conflict makes you uneasy.
That's right.
And uneasiness can be dis-ease, not at ease. And that's when
Yeah, everything can be brought down to resistance. And I think you're right. Yes, I see. I think you're right, Kavita. This is what Michael was pointing out when he asked. He says that the violence is a form of resistance. Yeah, it's kind of clicked in now. Yeah, everything could boil down to resistance, because resistance is such a brilliant feedback mechanism in the body, because you can actually feel it. You can feel that something's wrong. Like the way Nisargadatta explains the natural state is the state where nothing is wrong anymore. But when you feel that something is wrong, there is a resistance. Whether the resistance is there further investigated and labeled, or attached to a story, or assigned to an explanation of whatever, the violence or the anger or the sadness or the depression or whatever it is, it's still the same resistance, and it comes up from arguing with reality, from sense of separation and sense of the idea that this is no good. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we got it. Oh, Michael says, Sandra says, the love between you both is so palpable and beautiful to see. Yeah, thank you. It is absolutely magical.
to be recognised and that's it.
Yeah, it
It
is.
can.
And Tanya says, yes, Kat, it would be great if you wrote a book. I love the way you express non-duality pointers. Thank you. You're motivating me now. Who knows? Maybe that's just how life is redirecting attention away from defending you from your family into something more constructive. John David, does anyone know if there is a group that fans of Bob and Kat meet and talk outside of the meetings on Facebook? You mean without us? Because, you can join us on Zoom. And Bob always loves when you give him a call on Skype. And Sally says, oh yes, I think that's a great idea. I would love to have the opportunity to talk to others in the group. I think there used to be a meeting where Tony from New Zealand and Robin, he dropped off. We didn't see him on the meetings for a long time, but they were still catching up and speaking non-duality. That wasn't really about us anymore, but they were hanging out, going to convent. The call was with them. I think, if anyone knows Tony, she may be happy to rearrange it. But it wasn't online, it was physical meeting. They were catching up, going for lunch or coffee or something. And when coronavirus started and restrictions landed on everyone, this got to a halt. And I don't know if they resurrected or not. And I think they've included some people who actually did not want to speak about Bob. So I'm not sure. But yes, Sally, you could chat with Tony. She's she's socially organizing things, and who knows. Jasminder, so is consciousness evolving from ignorance to knowing? Is consciousness evolving from ignorance to knowing? Or is it a forgetting that is being remembered again?
Consciousness is existence, utterly aware that it exists. So it's awareness is clear and empty, it always is. Consciousness comes on. There's a knowing then of that existence. And it can take, then it goes into all the different shapes, patterns, forms and experiences, what we call consciousness,
Yeah.
But it's still only the awareness.
Yeah, the consciousness evolving, that is, that is such a beautiful idea. That's a beautiful idea that Ken Wilber is talking about, evolution of consciousness going higher and higher onto the spiral dynamics. There is also, even Eckhart Tolle is having a dream about consciousness evolving and getting more enlightened, and See, those are gorgeous stories, gorgeous dreams, but you want to watch out if you want to become a believer, because religions offer similar things. Believing in future in which all your problems will disappear, or believing in processes and tendencies that lead you to become someone or something, those are not non-duality. Those are fascinating entertainment for the mind and the intellect, and they are great description of, because there is evolution on a biological level of the species, which, you know, we call it evolution, but are they really getting better? Some organism getting their survival sorted out better by losing some of the functions, like stopping seeing or hearing, some on the bottom of the sea. And anyway, there is a change. Calling it evolution or involution or whatever is a change. But is it really about the consciousness evolving? Consciousness is already evolved and awake. So saying that it's more about remembering again, I would say is more appropriate way of describing it. Although again, it depends what anyone resonates with, because words are deceiving either way. And Amarnath, you both are beautiful and lovely. What is your present feelings, thinkings as father and daughter, as one or just two being on non-dual one awareness? So also this Facebook objects on home and this event. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. Maybe Amarnath, he has a daughter, and he is talking about the oneness of being, non-dual awareness. Facebook, objects of home, and this event. Oneness of him and his daughter and this Facebook group, and, you know, just general oneness.
What about it?
Yeah, so we got the message because Sally was asking. We got the message from Tony that her chat box doesn't work today, but you may find her through Facebook. So Amaranth is saying that we are beautiful and lovely, and what is our present thinking as father and daughter? Okay, no, we're not father and daughter. Bob never had children, I never had children either. So we are not blood related at all. But what is our feeling on two beings on non-dual awareness and this Facebook objects and home and this event? Yeah, I think you expressed it already. One essence, appearing, patterning, shaping as everything. As this body and that body, and there are a couple of cats, their bodies and the bodies of other forms, of the trees and the sofa and the carpet and events, the bodies of the thoughts, the very subtle sort of a fluid bodies of the thoughts and ideas and feelings. They are all
inclusive.
Yes, they're all one essence bubbling into the diversity of forms of life. They're just springing in and out of existence. The life of the thought is naturally shorter than the life of the sofa or the chair, but yeah, they still fresh and new moment to moment, because they only keep the form when we assert it by acknowledging it, by projecting it out and looking at it. But it is still one life. Tanya, no, I definitely don't want to be a zombie. This is Tanya says she doesn't want to be a zombie. I think we are a little bit behind when we were answering about the irritation for the daughter and having all sorts of emotional reaction. It's good to have them. They lively. They beautiful. They different frequencies bubbling through the body, through the system. And then the central nervous system needs variety. Apparently the biggest torture is to keep people in a single cell and deprive them from sleep. That's the deprivation from the variety. So you want that aliveness to bubble through. Whatever it is, if you call it irritation, I love that irritation. And Catherine says, Kat, you are a light from the infinite in a female form, James. Beautiful. That's all his credit. And again, it's no him, it's just life appearing and expressing through this form that And of course, there is a lot of people around who have completely opposite view, especially those who want to take advantage of Bob. They believe I'm the darkness because he's still around, and I can't wait. So it is all duality, all dance. Thank you. And Ben says, well said, Kat. You made the point about the Bodhisattva story once as well. Yeah, Bodhisattva story. That's the story of one who relinquishes their own enlightenment or awakening to help all the sentient beings. But this is just one way of looking at the Bodhisattva, because ultimately, I've read, I think, in also Chris's book, The 9 Pieces of Zen, the Bodhisattva had completely different definition. Was the definition of someone who doesn't identify as anything. And naturally, if you don't have the self, you do anything for the other, because that's the only calling. So that's why our relationship is so beautiful and effortless. I have no self. I do anything and everything for this beautiful man and Tito. It works both ways. So having a reflection of each other without personal agenda is such a natural, effortless joining, friendship, love, all of it. And yeah, being a mother and father of every sentient being. So we're not blood related, but we may be, I may be his mother at some points. He may be my father. I may be his daughter, his wife, his girlfriend, his cook, his maid. He is my everything, and I'm his everything. And that's our baby coming into the picture. Darling.
Got him?
Yeah, you got him. Okay, good.
Kitty cat. Pissed her.
Oh, yes. Okay, he probably needs to sit down.
Was having nothing.
Yeah, he just sat on the table. And see if we have Amarnath. Consciousness is knowing without knower. It is beyond knowing and not knowing. 2. Beyond language, words, lovely discussions. Very well said, Amarnath. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. John David Wickley, replying to Tanya, I can relate to this question as I lost my cool at work this week. Not long after the event teaching brought me back with what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it. Also, I have found that irritation and anger arise naturally and sink back into this presence. Yeah, I find it even quite exciting when you lose the cool. I find it exciting watching our cats that are sweet and lovely. They really love and respect each other. Sometimes they're just a little bored and they pat each other in the head and then they run behind. One could say, lose their cool, but yeah, for a moment there's hiss coming, and next 5 minutes later, what's wrong with right now? Nothing. Tanya says, great, John, that pointer came up here also. Yes, that's the way. Jasminder, is renunciation necessary in the non-dual journey?
Just anything to be renounced is the belief in the separate entity.
That's it, yeah. It's not even, it doesn't even need to be renounced, it needs to be recognized.
Recognized is not even there.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely no need to contrive the way life essence wants to express through that particular pattern. This is not a path of controlling, changing, altering, modifying, fixing, purifying. There's no it is being one with life or one with nature. It means totally just opening up to that life and that nature to flow through. And in the recognition of oneness of that life, the fact that this life exchanges signals and food and air with the body constantly. There is no separation anywhere. The body is part of nature. The thinking is part of nature. It always responds to the nature. There is no separation. Nothing needs to be fixed. And again, a life may want to, through particular body, experience and express itself in that one body as ascetic, sitting on lying on the bed of nails. I mean, life is infinite and unlimited, but that's definitely not part of the non-duality. It's just what it is. It's not non-dual journey. Non-dual journey doesn't really go anywhere. It is not a journey. It is a recognition that wherever you want it to go, you're already here. It is coming back to this moment right now as fully it and nothing beyond or behind, nowhere to go. It's a journey without destination or without time and duration.
Well, too caught up with us. What?
Yeah, so there is one more renunciation again. Is renunciation necessary in the non-dual journey? When recognition of non-duality occurs, is there an expectation of what one's life will look like?
If it's seen non-duality, it's seen who's to renounce what.
That's right. And if there is expectation, you recognize that expectation as just another cloud of thought, image, and ignore it. Just ignore it. Don't bother with it. Expectation, yeah, there are stories that, when you get enlightened, every bird will sing and the rose petals will flow from the sky, and they're gorgeous, but they're stories. No expectations whatsoever. Life in natural state is carrying wood, chopping the wood, carrying the water. It's just a normal life in which there is no story of anything happening to entity that lives inside the body or inside the brain. It's just normal being, effortless normal being, just like everything else in nature. The tree, the galaxy, the bacteria. And now Sally says thank you, and Jane says thank you, and we
say thank you.
We say thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we had a friend for lunch, got to get ready. And yeah.
Love you all.
Love you all.
And some good stuff coming through.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So everybody, when they're willing to talk, can pass on to somebody else. What resonates with you, it's yours.